Preface and Chapter 1 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. The Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre, as adopted by the Washington, D.C. Euchre Club, by a professor, one of the oldest and most noted euchre players in the United States, and a member of the Washington Euchre Club, to which is added the rules for playing draw poker. By Charles MEEHAN. Preface. No sedentary game is more popular, or so generally played for amusement in domestic circles, throughout the widespread eminent domain of the United States, as euchre, the queen of all card games, and but few, we regret to say it, possess less printed authoritative reference for consultation. Hence difficulties, doubts, differences of opinion, and local customs of play exercise an irksome influence even among skillful players, and solely for the want of some proper compendium of the laws and of the correct practice of the game. To supply this deficiency, in an humble way, the ensuing pages, sanctioned by very noble and approved good masters, are tenderly tendered. The Author, Washington, D.C. Chapter 1. Preliminary. 4 knaves in garbs succinct, a trusty band, caps on their heads and halberts in their hand, and party-colored troops, a shining train, drawn forth to combat on the velvet plain. Pope. Those clever fellows who, in social circles or at the club, resort to the exciting combinations exhibited by the painted tablets dealt and dealt again, recreation and amusement being their only aim, accredit euchre par excellence the most entertaining and fascinating of all the games of cards yet invented. The earliest knowledge which we, personally, have been able to gather of this, our favorite card game, was its introduction in the metropolis of the Union in the days — those days are past, Floranth — of General Jackson's first presidential term, by an ardent and slightly illiterate admirer of the general's, an Honorable M.C. from the Tennessee State, who was wont emphatically to pronounce it the hazardedest game on the kyards, though the game had been played, long prior to that period, in every inhabited township plat of the Northwestern Territory, and on every raft and steamboat afloat upon the exulting waters of the Mississippi River. There exists a legend ascribing its invention to 2 friars, of orders gray, who had been imprisoned for some improper practice or other malversation, and who are said to have invented the game to while away the tedious hours of incarceration, but the story is rather apocryphal. It is also narrated that the game sprang like Venus from the sea, that it is the result of a sailorman's ingenuity, Jack reversing the usual order of things on shipboard by placing his namesakes in command, and giving them the appropriate nautical appellations of right bower and left bower, in compliment to the main anchors of the ship. The origin of the game, generally admitted to be German, is not satisfactorily explained, and no mention whatever is made of it in the curious and elaborate treatise by S.W. Singer, entitled Researches into the History of Playing Cards, 4to, London, 1816, nor in any of the English editions of Hoyle's Games, nor in Captain Crowley's Handy Book of Games for Gentlemen, 12mo, London, 1860. The French are equally silent. No notice of the game is to be found in the long and learned array of articles on the various games of cards, and their name is legion, in the extended Dictionnaire des Jeux of the Encyclopédie Méthodique, and Monsieur Van Tenac, in his Album des Jeux, 12mo, Paris, 1847, a recent and careful collection of modern games of cards, seems entirely ignorant of its existence. We have just learned under date of Paris, December 8, 1861, from a distinguished French savant, now engaged in collecting materials for an elaborate and scientific treatise on card games, that euchre is not of French origin, and that the game is not noticed by any French writer on games. In this country, the only teaching we have of the game, except a few paragraphs in the late American editions of Hoyle's Games and of Bond's New Handbook of Games, is contained in The Game of Euchre, with its laws, 32º, Philadelphia, 1850, page 32, attributed to the late learned jurist, our illustrious predecessor, and to which little volume we hereby acknowledge ourselves greatly indebted. The name itself even, Euchre, is a mystery. Although the game is generally supposed in this country to be of German invention, yet we are informed by the most eminent linguist in Germany, Professor Grimm of the University of Berlin, that Euchre is not a German word, and has no sound of the language. It has been facetiously suggested that it might possibly be the German for Eureka, denoting that the Queen game of cards has at last been found. But, as we do not profess to especial erudition in the Teutonic linguistics, we venture no opinion of its philosophical deduction. Nor can we trace the least analogy or affinity as regards the promotion of the knaves into the rank of commanding cards, when of the suit, or color, of the trump, to any other card game. In some few particulars, however, it bears quite a resemblance to the game of écarté. How so animated and bright a game ever sprang from the brain of a phlegmatic German is somewhat marvellous, unless it may have been invented by that identical Baron, portly and solid like the rest of them, who was making the most terrible racket in his solitary apartment in Paris one morning, jumping over stools and slippers, and other anti-altitudinous articles, and whose noted reply to the agitated and expostulating garçon was, "J'apprends à être vif." He may have succeeded in attaining the lively. Whatever its origin, Euchre appears to have been introduced into the United States by the German settlers of Pennsylvania, and from that state gradually to have been disseminated throughout every state of the Union. But the original game has been so much improved by the variations and additions bestowed upon it in consequence of its great popularity with all classes in this country, that it may now fairly be denominated one of our peculiar American institutions. A squatter, in the land of the West, would consider his education sadly neglected nowadays, if a knowledge of this game was not one of his attainments. It is as necessary to his enjoyment of life as a stone jug of bourbon with a corncob cork, the democratic decanter, as they call it. The word Bauer, B-A-U-E-R, the German for jack or knave, Americanized to Bower, B-O-W-E-R, is said to be the only term used in the game which has been adopted from the German. Whist, and here let us pause with reverence, "not that I loved Caesar less, but that I loved Rome more," whist, we resume, since Hoyle perfected its invention and published his treatise on the game about 120 years ago, has been universally acknowledged to be the noblest game played with cards. As 20 more cards are involved in its play than in Euchre, and every one of them delivered in each deal, the game is undoubtedly more exact and mathematical. We fancy, however, that it is this very absence of mathematical accuracy which is one of the peculiar merits of our game, for nearly 1/3 of the Euchre pack is not distributed in the deal, but remains in the talon, thus adding to the variety and the chances of the play, and affording exciting combinations for the exercise of the shrewd player's judgment. But we are free to confess that, in nearly a quarter of a century's addiction to Euchre, viginti annorum lucubrationis, we have never met a fine player of both games who did not much prefer our pet game. We repeat, then, that accomplished adepts at both games, those social spirits who make of play a délassement, and not a laborious speculation, greatly prefer Euchre, because of the more sprightly character of the game, and its less mathematical exactness, giving more scope to chance and judgment, and affording a much keener enjoyment. And then consider that during the entire play of all the 13 tricks at whist, the most lugubrious silence, which is not our grand talent, must prevail, for we can only speak by the card, and, indeed, it has become an axiom of that game that whoever approximates nearest to being dumb may be deemed the best player. At Euchre, on the contrary, every deal of 5 cards apiece only, Ophelia, 'tis brief, my lord. Hamlet, as woman's love, is played out dashingly in a few minutes, affording opportunities to discuss the general topics of the day, for lively repartee and anecdotes, those gems of conversation, while the contrasts of chagrin and joy presented by unlooked-for defeat or success, so often recurring in the various vicissitudes of play, serve to set the table on a roar. Such a séance will frequently glide away so delectably as to inoculate pale melancholy with the bud of mirth. In a transit of the Atlantic, or a voyage to the Indies, which drags its slow length along, especially when not seasick, whist naturally presents peculiar advantages to those whose only labor is to kill the time, and labor dire it is, says the poet. But if one desires to amuse and tickle oneself, when sailing o'er life's troubled main, for the limited period of 8 or 10 hours only, in the pleasant occupation of disclosing the mysterious combinations produced by 32 cards, seasoned with cheerful conversation and innocent mirth the while, we commend him to Euchre. Euchre may be likened to that refined and seductive beverage, champagne wine, sparkling and bright, while whist more resembles the potent, heady tipple, the brown stout of its native England. Of all sedentary amusements, except a 4th-class clerkship in the Treasury Department, we most affectionate Euchre. But revenons à nos moutons. The game of Euchre is played with 32 cards, the 6, 5, 4, tray, and deuce of each suit having been withdrawn from a whist or whole pack. The tray and deuce of spades and diamonds, of the refuse cards, are ordinarily used for the purpose of counting the game. Recently, however, packs are expressly manufactured for this game, as well as for piquet and écarté, also played with the same number of cards, by Monsieur de la Rue, the eminent publisher of playing cards in London, and they may readily be obtained in all of our larger cities. The knave of trumps, the right bower as it is termed, is the highest or best trump, and the other knave of the same color, termed the left bower, is the next highest card. The remaining cards, including the knaves of the black suits when a red suit is trump, and vice versa, have the same relative value as at whist. It is usual to play with 2 packs, distinguished by backs of different colors, and the pack selected by each party at the commencement of the game should not be changed during the play of that game. Various customs of play prevail in different coteries and clubs, but the compiler has endeavored to follow those customs which are most in vogue, and are most consistent with the spirit of the game and the chances on the cards. There are also many varieties of the game, with the denominations of ace euchre, booster, setback, cutthroat, and the like, and euchre may be played by any number of persons from 2 to 6. But the only game worthy of the scientific player is that which is played by 4 persons, who cut for partners, as at whist, and it is to them that this treatise is most affectionately dedicated. Let not cards, therefore, be depreciated, a happy invention, which, adapted equally to every capacity, removes the invidious distinctions of nature, bestows on fools the preeminence of genius, or reduces wit or wisdom to the level of folly. Henry's History of Great Britain, Volume 12, page 385. Axiom. If you are invited from home to assist at a euchre party, and the tempestuous inclemency of the weather should be terrific, if your wife does not object too much, go. Your failure to be thar may seriously inconvenience your friends. End of chapter 1. Chapter 2 of The Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2. Mode of Playing. They know not when to play, where to play, nor what to play. Middleton. Who plays? Who plays? Who plays? Old Play. How absolute the knave is! Shakespeare. The game of Euchre, which consists of 5 points only, is played by 4 persons who cut for partners. It is the practice in some circles for the players to determine among themselves who shall be associated together as partners, and then to throw round, 1 card at a time to each player, for the first knave, which gives the deal to the player to whom it is thrown. But the more approved method is to cut for partners, the 2 highest becoming partners against the 2 lowest. He who cuts the lowest card wins the deal, and in cutting, the ace is counted the lowest, and the knaves rank as at whist. When the game is formed, and the players are seated at the table, with partners opposite to each other, so that each player is between his 2 adversaries, the player who has won the deal shuffles the pack and presents it to his right-hand adversary to cut. The dealer then places the cards lifted off by the cut at the bottom of the pack, and distributes 20 cards, by giving 5 of them in 2 rounds, of 2 and 3, or by 3 and 2, to each player, beginning with his left-hand adversary, and then turns up the 21st card, which he places on top of the talon, for the trump. The remaining cards of the pack, called the talon or stock, he places on the table to his right. The deal passes in rotation as long as the parties continue to play. The dealer's left-hand adversary, who is termed the eldest hand, then examines the cards dealt to him, and if he is of opinion that he can win 3 of the 5 tricks at the suit turned up for trumps, he says, "I order it up," and the card turned up by the dealer then becomes the trump. But if he thinks he cannot win 3 of the tricks, he simply says, "I pass." If he passes, the dealer's partner then examines his cards, and if he believes that himself and partner can win 3 tricks at the suit turned up, he says, "I will assist," and the turn-up card then also indicates the trump suit. But if he believes that himself and partner cannot win 3 tricks, he also says, "I pass." The third player, after looking at his cards, for the same reason that influenced his partner, either says, "I order it up," or "I pass." If all the players have passed, the dealer then examines his hand, and if he is confident of winning 3 tricks by playing with his partner, he says, "I take it up." He then discards the card of lowest value in his hand, and places it, face downwards, under the talon, and the turn-up card belongs to him in lieu of the one discarded. The dealer is always entitled to discard 1 card and take the turn-up, or trump card, into his hand, whether it is ordered up by his antagonists, or he is assisted by his partner, or takes it up himself. Should the dealer be doubtful of winning 3 tricks at the suit turned for trump, he says, "I turn it down," and immediately places the turn-up card face down on the talon. If all the players, including the dealer, decline to play at the suit turned up, the eldest hand then has the privilege of making a trump, and, should his hand be sufficiently strong to win 3 tricks, he says, "I make it," naming the suit he prefers, which then becomes the trump suit. If his cards are not strong enough to win 3 tricks, he says, "I pass the making." The second and third player in rotation have the same privilege of naming a trump suit, and after them the dealer. But, if all the players, including the dealer, pass the making, the deal is forfeited, and belongs to the last dealer's left-hand adversary, who immediately gathers the cards for dealing. But, when the deal is completed, if the eldest hand, on first looking at his cards, believes that his hand is strong enough to win 3 tricks if the suit turned up is trumps, he orders it up, which makes that the trump suit, and it must be played accordingly. The dealer then discards, and the play commences. The eldest hand opens the game by leading in any suit he chooses, and all the other players follow to it in regular order, and whoever plays the highest card wins the trick, which entitles him to the next lead. A player must always play a card of the suit led, if he holds one, on penalty of giving his adversaries 2 points for the revoke. But if he has no card of the suit led, he can trump or not at his option. The player who has won the first trick then leads, and the play continues, in like manner, until the 5 cards in each hand are played out. The trump, as at all other games, is the commanding suit, the lowest trump winning the highest cards of either of the other 3 suits. If the eldest hand passed and the dealer's partner assisted, or if the dealer's partner passed and the partner of the eldest hand ordered it up, or if the latter having passed, the dealer takes up the trump, the mode of play is the same. If the player who orders it up and his partner win 3 of the 5 tricks, the odd trick as it is termed, they score 1 point to the game. If they win 4 of the 5 tricks, they are also entitled to count 1 point only. But if they gain all 5 of the tricks, which is termed making a march, they score 2 points towards game. But if a trump is ordered up, or is taken up, or if a trump is made by either player, and such player and his partner fail to win 3 tricks, they are euchred, as it is termed, which entitles their antagonists to add 2 points to the score of their game. And so, if one party win all 5 tricks when their opponents adopt or make a trump, which will rarely occur except when the trump card is ordered up for the bridge, explained infra, the winning party are only entitled to count for the euchre, which is 2 points. The eldest hand, in leading, should place his card on the table immediately before him, and each player in rotation should observe the same method, a practice which prevents any misunderstanding about the ownership of cards. And, as no player has a right to ask who played any particular card, this practice also serves to designate each player's card by its position on the board. The tricks belonging to either party may be turned and collected by the player who wins the first trick on either side, but the better mode is to agree, at the commencement of the game, that one of the partners of opposite sides shall gather all the tricks won by himself and partner, and shall also keep the score of the game. The 5 points constituting game are counted with the tray and deuce of the refuse cards, termed counters, which are placed at 2 diagonal corners of the table, and in such a manner as always to be in view, for no player should ask how the score of the game stands, or call his partner's attention to it. The game is scored by placing the tray of the 2 counters, crosswise, with the face down, upon 1/2 the face of the deuce, leaving only one of its pips exposed, for 1 point. To count 2, the deuce is withdrawn from beneath the tray, upon which it is placed back to back. For 3, both cards are turned over, exposing the face of the tray. 4 is counted by removing the deuce from below the tray, and replacing it lengthwise, half covered, with the face up. This arrangement of the position of the counters should always be adopted, for then no mistake in the count can occur, except only at the score of 1, should the counters by accident be displaced on the table. The number of games won by each party may be reckoned with an ordinary 4-bladed penknife, in this manner: a blade 1/4 open for 1 game, half open for 2 games, 3/4 open for 3 games, fully opened for 4 games. The second blade can reckon 4 more games, which will be 8, when you count them, and the entire 4 blades open will reckon as many as 16 games. Cut and come again. The knife may then be closed if the players are lucky or skillful enough to continue its use, and 16 more, or 48, or ad infinitum games may be reckoned on it. If this simple practice will not suit the fastidious, we will connive at any other method. The mode of playing is at times varied by one of the players announcing that he will play alone, a variation of such great interest and amusement, and peculiar in many respects to this game, that we respectfully beg leave to be permitted to treat the modus operandi somewhat at length in the ensuing chapter. End of chapter 2. Chapter 3 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 3 on Playing Alone. Solitary and alone I set this ball in motion. Benton. There's a game much in fashion, I think it's called Euchre, though I never have played it for pleasure or lucre, in which when the cards are in certain conditions, the players appear to have changed their positions, and one of them cries in a confident tone, I think I may venture to go it alone. Saxe. Alone I did it. Shakespeare. It occurs quite often during an evening passed in social intercourse at Euchre, that a player has dealt to him 5 cards of such superior value that he is quite confident of winning all the 5 tricks without playing with his partner, and in such case he announces that he will play alone. The proper time to declare this intention is when it is the turn of the player who holds the lone hand, as it is termed, either to order up the trump or assist, or if the dealer, when he takes up the trump and before he discards, or when the player or his partner makes the trump. In each case the player makes known his intention by saying, distinctly and unequivocally, I play alone. His partner then places the cards dealt to him, faces down on the table immediately before him, and is not permitted to make any remark in relation to the value of the cards which he had in his hand during the play of the 5 tricks. The eldest hand leads. The eldest hand is always entitled to the lead, except when his partner plays alone, and then the lead is transferred to the dealer's partner, for the partner of the player playing alone is always hors de combat during the play of that hand. If the player who plays alone wins all 5 of the tricks from his antagonists, he is entitled to score 4 points to his game. But if he only makes 4 or 3 of the tricks, he can count but 1 point. Should he fail to win 3 tricks, however, he is euchred, which, when playing alone, counts his antagonists the same number of points that he would have gained if successful in winning all the tricks, namely 4 points. In playing the game on the Mississippi River, if the player who plays alone is euchred, the steamer is stopped at the first landing, and the unlucky player is put ashore. In the state of Arkansas, he is carried out to be hung to the first adjacent tree without benefit of clergy. But in a more refined and better established order of civilization, a hearty laugh against him is the only penalty he has to endure for the misplaced confidence on the cards, except those 4 points to the game of his opponents. It is customary in some coteries to count but 2 points when the adverse party euchre the player who plays alone, and as part and parcel of the same usage, either of his antagonists holding high cards in the trump suit may also play alone against him. In such a case, each player plays without his partner, and he who wins the odd trick is entitled to score the 4 points. But this practice, and quite deservedly, receives but little favor, as the approved mode of play achieves the same result. There is also another improper custom, adhered to by a few players only, which transfers to the player who announces a lone hand the right to lead, without any regard whatever to the position he holds to the dealer, or indeed if it should be the dealer himself who plays alone. But this practice is too much at variance with the spirit of the game to be tolerated by experienced players. If the dealer's partner assists, or makes a trump, the dealer has the privilege of playing alone, and if the eldest hand orders up the trump or makes a trump, his partner may in like manner play alone. It occasionally happens that each one of 2 players may hold a lone hand, and in that event the right of playing alone belongs to the partner whose turn to play is last. For example, A and C are partners opposed to B and D. A deals, and gives each of his opponents a lone hand. B, who is the eldest hand, orders up the trump card, and announces that he will play alone. D, his partner, has the right to take the privilege of playing alone from him. But in this case, the partner D is compelled to play alone, and the player B, who first announced a lone hand, cannot play, notwithstanding that he would have a great advantage, being entitled to the lead. If this rule did not prevail, an unfair player, wishing to intimate the strength of his own hand to his partner, might say that he would play alone, after his partner had announced his intention to do so, and then decline to play alone, which would convey to his partner the information that he also had a strong hand at trumps, and in that way give him a great and an improper advantage. Until this rule was established, the compiler had often witnessed partners, both holding lone hands, bickering with each other before they could agree as to which one should have the privilege of playing alone, which, of course, as developing their hands to each other, was entirely unfair. Should the eldest hand, holding very strong cards at the suit turned up for trumps, and being also strong at next in suit, pass, which, by the way, is always done in order to euchre the adverse party in case they take up the trump, and his partner also holds a strong hand of the trump suit, and in his turn orders it up, the eldest hand, having once passed the trump, cannot then play alone, but must take the chances with his partner to win a march. A player, having once passed the trump, or passed the making, cannot play alone when his partner orders up or makes a trump. We have known it asserted that when the eldest hand, being strong in trumps and also at next in suit, passes, and his partner, when in turn orders up, that the eldest hand may then re-enter and be permitted to play alone. But this practice is clearly too unfair to be entertained, and we most unqualifiedly denounce it as entirely incompatible with the principles of play and the spirit of the game. 4 high trumps and an ace of a lay suit constitute a good lone hand. 3 high trumps with an ace and the 7 even of the same suit is often a winning lone hand. A sequence of the left bower, ace, and king of trumps, and commanding lay cards, is always a good lone hand, because, if the right bower is out against it, 1 point only could be made if both partners played together, and if it is not out, the player who plays alone has a fair chance to win all the tricks. In playing alone, the eldest hand, being entitled to the lead, may play alone with a less strong hand than either of the other players, and he may sometimes, when cards are running favorably for him and unfavorably to his opponents, win all the 5 tricks when holding only the right bower and a small trump, with commanding cards in 1 or more suits. But although the right bower and a small trump, the 7 even, supported with commanding cards in lay suits, frequently make a winning lone hand, yet it would not be recommended to the tyro to play so bold a game. Players of experience are at times indulged with a presentiment, as they call it, foretelling that so small a lone hand will win, but such prescience is more the result of observation than luck. In playing alone, whether the trump is adopted or made, the lead is always a decided advantage. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. The dealer, being the last player to the first trick, may also venture to play alone on a less strong hand than either of the other players, except the eldest hand. There is a tide in the affairs of men which is often taken at the flood by accomplished players, who will then hazard a lone hand with comparatively small cards. Suppose the leader at the flood, and he plays alone with the right bower, king, and 9 of trumps, with an ace and a queen, or inferior card even, of different lay suits. In this case, after he has won the first 2 tricks with trumps, it is smart play to lead the ace of the lay suit, especially if the adversary's trumps are exhausted, for the opponents, supposing he would naturally hold another card of the same suit as the ace, led for the 3rd trick, would retain a card of that suit, if a medium one only, and throw away a king, or an ace even, of a different suit, when the last trump was led for the 4th trick, and the queen or lower card by such play frequently wins. When the dealer, having only 3 trumps, is discarding to play alone, it is much safer to put out even so high a card as the king of a lay suit, being the only card he has of the suit, and retain an inferior card, should it be so low as the 7, of a suit of which he holds the ace. For, after winning 3 tricks in trumps, the chances that the ace of the lay suit, when led, will exhaust the cards in that suit and enable the 7 to win the last trick, are decidedly more in his favor than that the king would win on the first lead of the suit, if he had retained it. For the same reason, 3 commanding trumps with an ace and 7 of a lay suit is considered a better lone hand than 4 trumps with a king of a lay suit. But, although a player may frequently hazard to play alone on a moderately strong hand, when a gentle course of luck comes wooingly to him, yet he must remember that, like another too well-known course, it never did run smooth. Instance a sad example. The dealer, having complemented the distribution of the cards, turns up the ace of spades for the trump. The eldest hand, examining his cards, finds he holds the right bower and 7 of spades, and the 7, 8, and 9 of clubs, and passes, as he should with that hand at any stage of the game. The other 2 players also pass, and the dealer having in hand the left bower and king of spades, with the ace and 10 of hearts, and the ace of diamonds, a captivating hand, announces that he will play alone, and discards the 10 of hearts, his own heart brimful of hope. The eldest hand leads either of the small clubs which his partner, holding but 1, follows, and the dealer wins with the ace of trumps. He then leads the left bower, which the eldest hand wins with the right bower, and leads another club, which forces the dealer to play the king of trumps. The 7 of trumps will then win either ace that is led, and the third club winning the remaining ace, the very strong lone hand is absolutely euchred. In playing alone and winning, the card of lowest value should always be the last card led, because when the adversaries are throwing away on the preceding leads, the chances of losing that inferior card are diminished. When playing against a lone hand, a partner throws away high cards of one suit, it is to be presumed that he holds commanding cards in some other suit, and his partner should therefore retain his highest card in the suit his partner throws away, when he has one, in preference to any, not a commanding card, of a different suit. When a suit is trumped by the player who plays alone, of course his opponents will throw away all the cards they hold of that suit to the lone player's winning cards when their trumps are exhausted. Should a player lose the first or the second trick playing alone, he must then play cautiously, and only endeavor to win the majority of the tricks, for, having lost the chance of winning the 5 tricks, he must play to prevent being euchred. More especially must he play with caution if, after losing the first or second trick, he holds the 10 ace, for then, after he has taken 1 trick, he is certain if he plays right of making the point. There is a peculiar practice of play that takes place at a certain state of the score, to which we solicit especial attention. This state of the game is termed a bridge. It is introduced at the close of this chapter for want of a more suitable spot to locate it, and we beg the gentle reader to give it a sort of retrospective effect by placing it supra, a little higher up the creek, and let it span the space intervening between chapters 2 and 3. The bridge, in Euchre, nata pons asinorum, occurs when one party are scoring 4 points, and their opponents, having the deal, are scoring 1 or 2 points only. It is then always the duty of the eldest hand to order up the trump, to prevent the dealer, or his partner, from playing alone, unless the eldest hand is sure of winning 1 trick. He is sure of a trick, of course, if he holds the right bower, or the left bower with another trump, the left bower guarded, as it is termed. At this state of the game he orders up the trump, when not certain of 1 trick, preferring to be euchred and lose 2 points only, to giving the dealer or his partner the chance of making with a lone hand and winning the game. This practice must be rigidly observed by the eldest hand, for the advantages of the deal are so great that the deal is deemed equivalent to a point. So, when the eldest hand is euchred where he has ordered up at the bridge, his chances for winning the game are still decidedly in his favor. The poorer his hand, the stronger the reason for ordering up. 4-1, or 2, is always a bridge. 4-0 is not. But, if the eldest hand is sure of winning one trick, he may pass if he chooses, and this is a fair signal to his partner, like the Blue Peter at whist, who, if strong in trumps, will know that the eldest hand has also 1 or 2, if not more, commanding trumps, and he will then order up for the purpose of winning the point and game. 3-1 and 2-0 are sometimes considered a bridge, especially if the dealer turns up a bower or other high card. But the tyro would not be advised to take such liberties. Older players who have acquired a tact in doing such things, by long observation and play and attention to the run of the cards, may frequently succeed in such experiments. If either one of the dealer's opponents calls the attention of his partner to the state of the game at a bridge, or gives any intimation of the fact, the dealer or his partner may then play alone, or permit the opponents to order up at their option. Attention to the bridge is the office of the eldest hand alone, and as it is a free institution, he cannot be told. End of chapter 3. Chapter 4 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. Lap, Slam, Jambone, and Jamboree. Ambiguitas verborum latens verificatione suppletur. Bacon's Maxims. Once more I will renew his lapsed powers. Milton. The addition of the lap, slam, and jambone to the game of euchre is comparatively a modern institution, and is esteemed by competent judges, the choice and master spirits of this age, as one of the grand inventions of the present refined state of society, a result of the advanced condition of civilization. We have, indeed, encountered some few players, but of indifferent skill, who decline to sanction this pleasing variation of the game, and persistently insist in their opposition to the lap, which is counting all the points 1/5 to the next game, declaring that you might as well score all the points won over the number constituting the game at whist or at any other game of cards, and adhere most rigidly to the fixed fact that one game is only one game, no matter how many points are won above the number of which it consists. This is very good logic when applied to most games, but it is inapplicable to ours, and this opposition to the lap constitutes the principal opposition to the jambone. But this very practice thus objected to, we affectionately cherish as one of the most interesting features of our pet game. Alas for difference in taste! So many men, so many minds, autant de tête, autant d'opinion, as we say in Paris, with a haussement d'épaules. We heard it once alleged that people do exist who even object to play cards. Tell it not in Gath. And then this variation of the old mode of playing the game of euchre adds so immensely to the amusement of the play, the purpose, we opine, for which the game was invented, and has such a cheering influence on a despondent player's downcast heart, to whom ill luck has been obstinately running by giving him the hope, gay hope by fancy fed, that if fortune, the hoodwinked goddess, will once again smile upon him, he may be enabled by a few brilliant coups to retrieve his sad reverses. And our game is, in truth, so essentially variant in many points of play from all other games, that this objection to the lap, slam, and jambone cannot be fairly argued against it, and this mode of play is as fair for one party as the other. So what's the hodds as long as we're 'appy? We confess to never yet having encountered a first-class player who did not pronounce the lap an eminently pleasing addition to the game. Permit us to instance a case, more clearly to illustrate our meaning. Suppose a player, ardent as ecclesiastical zeal, at the score of 4, though not fourscore for the zeal's sake, perceives, on examination of the cards dealt to him, that he holds a sure lone hand, and all the other players pass to him. If he is to be deprived of the privilege of playing that hand alone, and of counting the 4 points which he wins, as he most assuredly would be were he not allowed to lap the superfluous 3 points to the next game, such deprivation would cause him to be depressed in spirits for a week, as wretched a youth as if he had been entangled in the meshes of the tender passion and suffered disappointment. These little things are great to little men. But, as an agreeable man is one who agrees, and who delights to obviate difficulties, it would be advisable, before sitting down to play with persons who have never previously entered the lists together, for one player to make himself agreeable by inquiring if this manner of playing the game is to be adopted, and if the proposition gives rise to any difference of opinion affecting the merits, we most sincerely hope that its expression may not prove to be so tedious to either party as this preamble of ours. The lap, then, is simply counting upon the score of the ensuing game all the points made over and above the 5, of which the game consists. For example, if one party, having scored 4 points towards game, should euchre their opponents, or should win all 5 tricks, either of which events entitles them to 2 points, they therefore not only win that game, but are permitted to score the superfluous point as won in the next game. Or, if a player, at the score of 4, plays alone and wins the 5 tricks, he counts the 3 points over to the next game. Slam, or love game, is a term common to many games of cards, and implies that, when a party win the game before their opponents have made 1 point, that game is deemed to be a double game, and must be reckoned as 2 games. Suppose a player at the score of 4, and his opponents are counting nothing, and he plays alone and wins the 5 tricks, which counts his side 4 additional points, 8 in all. He wins that game, which reckons as 2 games, and he is permitted to transfer the extra 3, by means of the lap, to the next game, and feels that he has accomplished a good thing. Alone I did it. We can trace no analogy between the terms slam and love game, which have the identical signification, however, at cards, without being indecorously alluding to our own, and neighbors' street doors, and agitated exits, and so prudently refrain. Verbum sat. Jambone is a euphonic term, of difficult etymology. But what's in a name? Whatever its derivation may have been, however, it is now only used to express the intention of a player to play alone, with his cards exposed on the table. Thus, if a player, on examining the cards distributed to him by the dealer, finds that he holds cards of such estimable worth that he is confident of winning the 5 tricks, he announces, when his turn, that he will play Jambone, and spreads his cards out in a line before him on the table, with their faces turned up to view. When the cards are exposed by the Jambone player in this manner, the player entitled to the lead commences the round, and has the right to call one of the cards so exposed to be played to the first trick. But this right to call a card belongs only to that adversary who has the right to lead, or to play first, for if the partner of that adversary gives any intimation to his associate which would enable the two together to win the first trick, they thereby forfeit their right to the call, and the Jambone player may then play whichever card he chooses to the first trick. If the Jambone player is successful in gaining the whole 5 tricks, under this disadvantage of showing the opponents his cards, and of giving the elder in hand the right to name one of the cards so exposed to be played on the first trick, he is entitled to count 8 points. Jambone may be played by any player under the same restrictions which regulate playing alone. If the adverse party order up, or make the trump, a player holding a Jambone hand cannot be permitted to play it as such, and he must be content simply to win a Euchre with it. If the Jambone player is entitled to the lead, then his left-hand adversary has the right to call one of the exposed cards as the lead. If the first trick under these circumstances is won by the Jambone player, the play proceeds in the usual course, and if the Jambone player then wins only the majority of the 5 tricks, he scores but 1 point towards the game, as in playing alone. The opponent, entitled to call, has the right to call but 1 card only, and that card to the first trick played, and the Jambone player is entitled to play his other 4 cards according to his own judgment. If the eldest hand, opposed to the dealer playing the Jambone, leads a suit which the Jambone player can trump, and calls, on leading, the smallest trump in the open hand, if his partner can also trump the suit with a higher trump, they of course win that trick, for the Jambone player is compelled to play the card called when not inconsistent with the system of play. But let us illustrate this point. Suppose the dealer plays a Jambone hand, and clubs are trumps, and in the open hand he shows the Bowers, Ace, and 10 of trumps, with the Ace of hearts. The eldest hand has 3 diamonds, with no trump, and leads one of them, hoping, as he has so many, his partner may be able to trump it also, and calls the 10 of trumps from the Jambone hand. His partner, having the Queen of trumps, with no diamond, wins the trick. The Jambone player would not have the option in this case, after the Queen was played, to throw away his Ace of hearts in lieu of the 10 of trumps, but he must always play the called card. Should the Jambone player fail to win 3 tricks, it is not yet known what measure of corporal punishment ought to be inflicted upon him, but his adversaries, at all events, would be entitled to count 8 points. The dealer, possessing the right to discard, or in other words, having 6 cards with the privilege of putting out one of them, more often holds a Jambone hand than either of the other players. He is never compelled to use, or take in, the card turned up for trump, if he should be so fortunate as not to require it, for then the turn-up card only serves to indicate the trump suit, and he may decline to discard. The player calling the card to the first trick should call it at the moment he leads, or if the lead belongs to the Jambone player, his opponent entitled to the call must call before he plays, for if the opponent's partner plays his card before the player who has the right to call has called, the right to the call becomes forfeited, and the Jambone player may then play any card he chooses to the first trick. A few examples of the play, by way of illustration, may define our positions more clearly. Suppose, then, the dealer, concluding the deal, turns up the Ace of spades. The other players pass, or his partner may assist, and, examining his cards, he is delighted to behold the 2 black Bowers, with the Queen and 10 of trumps, and a card of a lay suit. He immediately announces the Jambone, discarding the lay card. He then turns up his cards on the table, in a line before him, and is confident of success, naturally, as the chances in favor of the King of trumps not being out against him are so mighty multitudinous, that it would be quite unnecessary to enter into a calculation of them, even if he could. But the fickle goddess, bless her heart, does not invariably bestow all her favors on one individual. We love to say it, for the eldest hand does, curiously enough, oh, the capriciousness of luck, hold the identical King of trumps. He leads that king, of course, with a smile of gratitude, announcing in a winning manner, bland as the breath of spring, that he calls the Queen, which the dealer is compelled to play to the king after the eldest hand's partner has followed to the lead, and the Jambone player loses that trick. Although he wins the other 4 tricks, he is only entitled to count 1 point, as previously stated. If the dealer had played that hand alone simply, of course he would have won every trick, and secured 4 points, but the chances of winning all 8 points were so seductive that it was impossible not to take the hazard. For nothing venture, nothing gain is preeminently a maxim of Euchre. Had the eldest hand not been the lucky holder of the king, but had held, in lieu of his majesty, an indifferent trump, or in fact any trump, it then would have been his imperative duty to have led it, calling the queen or the 10, in the faint hope that his partner might possibly hold the king, which gave them the only chance of preventing the Jambone hand from making. Such chances must never be disregarded. If the dealer plays Jambone with a quart, or sequence of 4 trumps from the left bower, and an ace of a lay suit, which he should invariably do, because if the right bower is out against him he would only win 1 point if he played alone, the eldest hand should lead a card if he holds one of the same suit as the dealer's lay ace, in the hope that his partner might be able to trump it. The eldest hand could not play a lay card of a different suit and call the ace of a lay suit to be played to it, because that would be at variance with the spirit of the game. No player having the right to call a card from the Jambone player's hand can require him to throw away a commanding card of a lay suit to a lead of a different suit, but in that case can only call his lowest trump. If the cards should be cut in such a manner that the dealer turns up a bower, say the knave of spades, the most unkindest cut of all, and he deals to himself the left bower and 9 of trumps, with the ace of each of the 3 lay suits, he may discard his 9 of trumps and play Jambone. He discards this small trump because the chances are much more favorable that either one of the 3 aces will win the first trick, when called by the eldest hand, than that his 9 of trumps will make. It would not be prudent to play this hand Jambone if the player holding it was the eldest hand, because the player next in play to him might be able to trump one of the 3 aces, and he would therefore call it, and in that way win the first trick. But when the suit is led to the Jambone player, the chances of the second player not being able to trump are greatly in favor of the Jambone player, who would then win the trick, and would probably exhaust the trumps with his 2 bowers, and clear the way for the other 2 aces. Although the foregoing hand should generally win, yet it might be quite easily euchred. Par example, suppose the eldest hand holds the 10 of trumps, 3 small hearts, and a small diamond. His partner has the 7 and 8 of trumps, and 3 small clubs. The eldest hand leads a small heart, because, having 3 of them, his partner would be more likely not to have any, and calls the ace. His partner not holding a heart trumps with his 7 and wins the trick. He then leads a club on which the dealer puts his ace, and the eldest hand wins with the 10 of trumps, taking the second trick. The eldest hand then leads his small diamond, which his partner wins with the other small trump, and the dealer's 2 bowers are left blooming alone, while his antagonists proceed contentedly to score 8 points for their successful play. They laugh that win, if we remember rightly. Once more, suppose the dealer is assisted by his partner, and, looking at his hand, finds that he holds the 2 bowers, with the 7 and 8 of trumps, a lay ace, with another small card. He may discard and venture the Jambone on this rather indifferent hand, if the score of the game invites it, though it would, ordinarily, be better to play alone simply, for, if the eldest hand has no trump to lead, and to call the 7 or 8, the dealer is almost sure of winning. Remember, there are only 9 trumps, 8 of the suit, with the knave of the same color, in this favorite game of ours. The dealer, in this case, sees 4 of them in his own hand, and he is certain that his partner has at least 2 more, which accounts for 6 of the trumps. As there are 10 cards in the hands of the 2 opponents, and 11 more in the talon, the chances are very much in favor of the eldest hand being without a trump. We could cipher it out for you, but it is scarcely necessary. Jamboree is another musical sound of unknown etymological deduction, rarely announced, however, breathe not his name, and signifies the combination of the 5 highest cards, namely, the 2 bowers, ace, king, and queen of trumps, in one hand, which bestows on the player, Fortuna Juvante, who holds this galaxy of cards, the pleasing privilege of counting 16 points. It requires but little to be said of this rare constellation of the painted tablets, for a player will not have dealt to him the Jamboree more than 2 or 3 times in the course of a quarter of a century's addiction to the game. The player holding Jamboree simply announces the fact and displays the cards, for no play, of course, is necessary. But the player must announce the Jamboree, for if, by mistake, he should announce the Jambone, and commence to play the hand as such, when in fact he holds the Jamboree, he is only entitled to score what he announces, and to count 8 points. The mistake of one party is the game of the other. In counting the lap and the slam, it is to be remembered that all the points made above 5 go to the score of the next ensuing game, and if those points extend to so many as 10, as in the case of a party scoring 2 points and winning with the Jambone, making 8 points more, the second 5 points, from 6 to 10 inclusive, must be a slam, which counts 2 games, making in all 3 games. If a player is scoring 4 points and wins with the Jambone, which, added to the 4, makes him 12 points, he counts 3 games, and the supernumerary 2 lap into the 4th game. If the adverse party were not scoring 1 point, the first game would be a slam, as well as the second, which would then count 4 games, with the 2 to the next game. This, of course, is the highest number of points that can be gained in one hand, except with the Jamboree. The Jamboree hand wins 16 points, which must at least count 5 games with 1 point to lap over. If a player is scoring 4 to his opponent's nothing, and announces the Jamboree, the 16 points then won, added to his 4, make 20 points, which make 4 games, each of them a slam, which entitles him to count, in all, 8 games, the highest figure attainable. Jamboree, like Jambone and playing alone, cannot be played as such if the adverse party order up the trump, or make it, for in that case it can only win the 2 points, as when playing the bridge, for the Euchre. It will be perceived that our game is particularly symmetrical in arrangement, and to prevent any misunderstanding in scoring the games, let us reiterate that the counts, in the different variations of play, increase in geometrical progression, and when one party, adopting or making the trump, win the odd trick, they count only 1 point. In winning all 5 tricks, they count 2 points. Playing alone and winning, 4 points. Playing at Jambone, 8 points. With the Jamboree, 16 points. Should the party, adopting or making the trump, fail to win the odd trick in either of these variations of play, they lose the same number of points which they would have been entitled to count if they had been successful in gaining the 5 tricks. End of chapter 4. Chapter 5 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre, by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. Technicalities. Verbum verbo redere fidus interpres. Horace. Words, words, words. Wordsworth. Adopt the trump. To play at the suit turned up. Assist is where the dealer's partner, believing that he can win the odd trick, at least, agrees to play at the trump turned up. Bower. Either knave of the color of the trump suit. Will you come to the bower I have shaded for you? Bridge. Is where the opponents, having the deal, are counting but 1 or 2 points only towards the game, and the other side are at the score of 4. It is then the duty of the eldest hand, if he has not one certain trick in hand, to order up the trump card to prevent the dealer or his partner from playing alone. Call. Is the right to require an adversary to play a card that has been improperly shown or exposed. Cards away. To play alone. Count. To reckon the game. Counters. The deuce and tray, usually of diamonds and spades, probably because the pips of those two suits being more sharp and angular are easily discerned. Court cards. The aces, kings, queens, and knaves of each suit, as distinguished from the numerical ones, formerly called coat cards. Cross the suit. To make a trump of different color from the card turned up for the trump. Cut. To separate the pack into two parts before the player, whose right it is to deal, distributes the cards. Deal. To distribute to each player 5 cards, face downwards, after the pack has been shuffled and cut. Dealer. He to whom belongs the privilege of distributing the cards to the other players. Deck. Synonymous with pack. Discard. Putting out one card from the dealer's hand and replacing it with the card turned up when it has been adopted for the trump. Doubled. 2 cards of the same suit. Dutch it. The same as next in suit. Eldest hand. The left-hand adversary of the dealer. Euchre. This term, which gives the game its name, is used to denote the loss of a party, adopting or making a trump, and who fail to win a majority of the tricks. It also applies to lone and jambone hands failing to win, the successful opponents counting 4 and 8 points respectively. Faced card. One with its face turned up so that it may be seen. Finesse is where a third player holding the best and the third best trump plays the latter, taking the risk that the last player does not hold the second best trump. If the last player does not hold it, the third player by this play wins the 2 tricks. Follow suit. To play a card of the suit led. Force. To lead a suit of which your opponents hold none, thus forcing them to trump or lose the trick. Fresh deal. When an accident occurs in dealing, the dealer is entitled to deal anew. Game. When 2 players, associated together as partners, make 5 points before their adversaries. Go alone. The same as to play alone. Guarded. Any 2 cards of suit. Hand. The 5 cards given to each player by the dealer. Jambone is when a player holds such high cards that he announces to play them without his partner, turned, faces up to view on the table, and gives to that adversary who is entitled to lead or to play first the privilege of calling one of the cards so exposed to the first trick played, or, if the jambone player has the lead, to call a card from his open hand to be played to. If he can then win all 5 tricks, he is entitled to count 8 points. Jamboree, holding the 5 highest cards at trumps, being the 2 bowers, ace, king, and queen, which the player having them shows, as at Jambone, and is entitled to count 16 points. Lap. To count all the points made over 5 to the next game. Lay card. Any card not a trump. Lay suit. Either of the 3 suits when not the trump. Lead. The first card played by the eldest hand. Afterwards, the card led by him who has won the preceding trick. Left bower. The knave of the same color as the trump suit, which is the second best trump. Left bower guarded. To hold the left bower and any other trump, which will generally win 1 trick if properly played. Lone hand. A hand so strong in trumps that it will probably win all 5 tricks if played alone. Lone player. One who plays without his partner. Love game. Is when one party count 5 before their adversaries have made 1 point. Also, an innocent sedentary amusement between 2 young persons of opposite sexes, by moonlight alone. Make the point. Is when the players, who adopt or make the trump, win the odd trick. Make the trump. To name any suit for the trump after all the players have passed, and the dealer has turned down the trump card. March is when two partners playing together win all of the 5 tricks. Mark the game, to count. Misdeal, an error in the distribution of the 5 cards belonging to each player, or when the right-hand opponent has not cut the cards previous to their distribution, which forfeits the right to the deal. Next in suit, the trump the same color of the suit turned down, as if a diamond is turned down and the trump is made a heart. Numerical cards, the 7 to the 10, both inclusive, as distinguished from the court cards. Odd trick, the third one of the 5 tricks. Order it up, to require the dealer and partner to play at the suit turned up. Pack, the Euchre pack is composed of the 32 cards left in a whist or complete pack after all the 6s, 5s, 4s, treys, and deuces have been thrown out. Pass, to announce that the player declines to play at the trump turned up. He passed as if he knew me not. A beautiful ballad by Bailey. Pass the making, to decline to name any suit for trump. Pip, the spots on the numerical cards from the 7 to the 10. Also, a malady prevalent among adolescent chickens, a cure for which shall be furnished gratis to our suburban subscribers by application at the office. Play alone, to play a hand without the partner. Point, one of the 5 numbers of which a game consists. Quart, 4 trumps in sequence. Rentrée, the right to the lead which belongs to the player who has won the last trick. Revoke, a revoke is when a player, who holds a card of the suit led, plays, by mistake or design, a card of a different suit. Right bower, the knave of the trump suit, which is the commanding trump. Round, the 5 tricks played in each deal, and each trick is also termed the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, and 5th round. Ruff, to trump a lay suit. Score, the count, showing the state of the game. Sequence, the regular succession of 3 or more cards in hand. Shuffle, to mix the cards together before they are cut to be distributed to the players. Side cards, the same as lay cards. Slam, to win a game before the adverse party count 1 point in it. Spot, the same as pip. Stock, synonymous with talon. Suit, the name given to each of the 4 denominations or orders of the cards contained in a pack, as the suit of diamonds, hearts, spades, and clubs. Take it up, the dealer's announcement that he intends to play at the suit turned up for trumps. Talon, the 11 cards remaining in the pack after the dealer has distributed 5 to each player and turned up the 21st card for the trump. Tenace, is when a player holds the highest and 3rd best trumps and is the last player, which ensures to him those 2 tricks. Throw away, to play a card, not a trump, of different suit to that led. Tierce, a sequence of 3 trumps, as the 2 bowers and the ace, or the ace, king, queen, etc. Trick, the 5 cards played by each player and won by the highest card played, also called a round. Trump, the suit adopted or made the commanding suit. Trump card, the card turned up by the dealer for the trump. Turn down, the card shown or turned up for trump, which the dealer turns face down when all 4 players decline to play at that suit. Turn up, the card, in dealing, next to the 20th or last card dealt, which is turned face up on the talon for trump. Underplaying, is to follow suit with a card of inferior value to the adversary's lead when holding one that can win it. End of chapter 5. Chapter 6 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 6 Laws. We have strict statutes and most biting laws. Shakespeare. Laws wise as nature and as fixed as fate. Pope. The laws of Euchre should be carefully studied by every player who desires to become an accomplished adept at this fascinating game. The laws, here compiled, are observed and approved by the best players, and are supposed to determine every case which may occur in play. They should be enforced in the strictest sense, on all occasions, never deviating from them in the slightest manner yourself, and requiring your adversaries, with proper courtesy of course, also to respect them. For, if a player is to be permitted to act as he chooses, to indicate by signs or remarks to his partner the character of the cards he holds, or to play a card and take it back, or other similar impropriety, you might as well sit down at the table and play at jack-straws. In some few instances the laws may appear too rigid, but experience demonstrates to all skillful players the absolute necessity of adhering undeviatingly to the provisions they are designed to enforce, the law in each case made and provided, for the integrity of the game must be strictly preserved. Dura lex, sed lex. By a careful observance of the laws, moreover, the unpleasant disputes and altercations which so often interrupt and mar the merriment of a card party will be entirely obviated. Law 1. Each player must cut for the deal, the two highest and the two lowest become partners, and he who cuts the lowest card is entitled to the deal. Should the lowest cards cut be of similar value, it is as a tie as respects them, and those parties must cut again. If the person cutting should show two cards instead of one, he must be deemed to have cut the highest, or if he let fall a card from the pack face up, that card must be considered his cut. Each party cuts and shows the bottom card of those he has lifted from the pack. In cutting, the cards rank as at whist, the ace being the lowest. Law 2. The cards must be shuffled by the dealer and cut by his right-hand opponent. The latter has also the privilege of shuffling them, and if he does, the dealer, who is always entitled to the last shuffle, may shuffle them anew if he chooses. After the cards have been cut for the deal, however, no one except the dealer can touch the pack previous to dealing. Law 3. In cutting for the deal, 3 cards at least must be lifted from the pack, and not fewer than 4 must be left upon the table. The dealer should never hold the pack in his hand when presenting it for the cut, but should place it on the table near his right-hand adversary. Law 4. In dealing, 5 cards are distributed to each player, either by 3 and 2, or by 2 and 3, in 2 rounds. But the dealer must continue to follow whichever mode he at first adopts, and should he depart from it, either of the adverse parties may, before looking at his cards, require a fresh deal. Law 5. If a card is faced or is turned in dealing, unless it is the 21st or trump card, the pack must be shuffled anew, and a fresh deal made. But the dealer does not lose his privilege. Should the dealer show more than one card in turning up the trump card, the deal is likewise void, and he must deal anew. Law 6. Should either of the dealer's opponents, during the deal, expose a card to view, the dealer may have a fresh deal, or not, at his option, but he must decide before looking at his own cards. If his partner exposes a card, either of his adversaries, in like manner, may, before the trump is turned up, require a new deal. Law 7. No player is permitted to take up, or to look at, his cards during the deal, and should a misdeal ensue in consequence of such impropriety, the dealer does not lose his privilege and may deal anew. It must be considered a misdeal, however, if his partner commits the fault. Law 8. When too few or too many cards are dealt, If the mistake can be rectified, and the proper order of the distribution of the cards ascertained before the trump card is turned up, the deal is valid. But if the error is not discovered until after the trump card is turned up, the deal is forfeited and passes to the next player. Law 9. If the cards are dealt by a player who is not entitled to the deal, and the error is discovered before he looks at his cards, though the trump card be turned, that deal is null, and the cards must be restored to the player entitled to the deal, even if the eldest hand, or either of the other players, adopts the trump. If the dealer has discarded, and the eldest hand has led, however, the mistake cannot be corrected. Law 10. If, in any deal, the pack is ascertained to be imperfect, by containing too many or too few cards of the proper value in either suit, that particular deal is void, but all the games or points made in the preceding deals with the same pack are valid, and the deal in which the error is discovered is not forfeited. Law 11. The trump card must be left in view on the talon by the dealer, after discarding, until it is his turn to play, when he may remove it to his hand. After he has taken up the trump card, no player has a right to demand what particular card was turned up, although he may ask what is the trump suit. Law 12. Whenever a misdeal occurs, the deal is forfeited, and the opponent on the left of the dealer becomes entitled to the deal. Law 13. Each person, in playing, should place his card on the table immediately before him, but if this practice should not be pursued, no player has a right to ask who played a particular card, although he may require the other players to draw their cards before them. Law 14. If the eldest hand leads before the dealer has discarded, he cannot withdraw his card and change his lead, nor can the dealer, at any time before completing his discard, be deprived of his right to play alone. The discard is not completed until the dealer places his card under the talon, or on the table, and has quitted it, and when the dealer has once quitted the discarded card, he cannot change it. Law 15. If a player leads or plays out of turn, he may be compelled to withdraw his card, subject to the penalty of the call. If it causes an error in the play of any other party, that player may withdraw his card without penalty. But, in the case of an improper lead, if 4 cards have been played before the error is discovered, the lead is good, and the player winning the trick is entitled to the next lead. Law 16. Any card which is separated from those in hand, and has touched the table, is deemed to have been played, even if the face be downward, though if a card is played to a lead of a suit different from the one led, it may be taken up, subject to the call, and another of the proper suit played. But if the player should have none of the suit led, and plays a card which he did not intend, he is not permitted to take it up again after he has once quitted it. Law 17. If a player plays 2 or more cards to a trick instead of 1, the adverse parties have the right to compel him to play either one of the cards they please, without regard to the order in which they were played, and the other card or cards shown may be called in the subsequent tricks like other exposed cards. Law 18. No player is allowed to look at any of the tricks during the play of a hand after they have been turned, except the last trick only. Law 19. If any player plays with 6 or more cards, or if the dealer plays and omits to discard, and fails to announce the fact before 3 tricks have been turned, such player or dealer cannot count the point or points made on their side in that hand, and they lose the deal. But if the adverse party win under such circumstances, they are entitled to count all they make. Law 20. If a player designedly, or for any reason, places his cards on the table, faces turned up, he is not permitted to take them up again, and his adversaries may call each card like other exposed cards, except at Jambone, when the right to call is limited to the first trick. Thus, if a player, sure of winning, exhibits his cards, his opponents can continue the play and have the right to call each card so exposed. The penalty is the same if the player believing he has lost shows his cards in a similar way. Law 21. Whenever a player, who is entitled to the privilege of making the trump, once names a suit, he cannot be permitted to change it, and should he, by mistake, name the suit turned down, it is equivalent to passing, and the right to make the trump then belongs to his left-hand opponent. Law 22. A player intending to play alone must announce his determination to play without his partner in such an audible and distinct expression that no doubt must exist of his intention, for if his manner of announcing it is ambiguous, and a legal lead is made by himself or an adversary, he loses the privilege of playing alone and must be compelled to play with his partner. Law 23. Whenever a revoke occurs, whether from inattention or design, the adverse parties are entitled to add 2 points to their score. Law 24. The revoke is not completed until the trick in which it has been made is turned and quitted, and the player committing the revoke or his partner has again played. Law 25. If a player revoking perceives his error previous to the turning or quitting of the trick in which it has been made, he can withdraw his card from the trick and follow the suit led, but his left-hand antagonist may compel him to play the highest or the lowest card he holds of that suit, or if it seems more advantageous to his side, he may call the card so exposed and taken back whenever it is the offending player's turn to play or lead in a subsequent trick. Law 26. If the partner of a player who has made a revoke, but has discovered it in time to correct it, has played to the trick, he is not permitted to change the card he has played, but the adversary who has played after the revoke occurred may withdraw his card from the trick without penalty, and play another, if he thinks it may give him an advantage. Law 27. Should either of the adversaries mix the cards together when a revoke is alleged against them, they incur the penalty of the revoke, and the players claiming it are entitled to score the 2 points. Law 28. When the cards have been cut for a new deal, no party is entitled to claim the penalty of a revoke, and, in case of a reciprocal revoke in one hand, one error offsets the other and a fresh deal must be had. Law 29. If a player shows or exposes one or more of his cards, intentionally or by accident, the card or cards so shown may be called by an opponent, either as a lead when the offending player's turn to lead, or to the exposed card's suit when led. A card is shown if it is purposely or accidentally exposed, and either of the opposite players can distinguish its character and name it. And a card may be called if the holder names or indicates that it is in his hand. Law 30. A player called upon for an exposed card must play the card or submit to the penalty of a revoke. Law 31. The right to call one or more cards, improperly played or exposed, by an opponent, belongs only to the left-hand adversary of the offending player, and in no case can such a card be called if it causes a revoke. Nor can the player entitled to call require his opponent to throw away a commanding card to a lead of a different suit when holding no card of the suit led, whether he can trump it or not. If 2 or more players in any one deal expose a card, the law is the same. Law 32. Neither adversary is permitted to call the attention of his partner to the state of the game at a bridge, without forfeiting their right to order up, and the dealer or his partner may then play alone or not at the option of either. Law 33. If the counter marks more points than he is entitled to score to the game, either adversary, or a bystander even, may call attention to the error, and the opponents are entitled to count to their score the point or points which their adversaries erroneously added to theirs. But the error cannot be rectified after the trump card has been turned in the deal next ensuing that in which the error occurred. So if he fails to count or counts fewer points than he is entitled to, he loses the right to score such point or points when the next deal is completed. Law 34. Should a player from loss of temper, or upon supposition that he has lost or won the proper number of tricks, or from any other cause, throw down his cards upon the table, with their faces turned up, he cannot take them in hand again, and his left-hand adversary may call each card so exposed as he deems most advantageous to his side. Who leaves the game loses it, is a maxim of this as well as of all other games. Law 35. Every species of unfairness is strictly prohibited, and if a player, at any time between the turning up of the trump card and the playing of the last card of the deal, indicates to his partner the strength of his own hand, either by words or gestures, or advises him how to lead or play, or invites him to make a trump by such expressions as "follow the rule," "make it something," or any other phrase, or asks any questions about the game except such as are specifically allowed by the laws of Euchre, the adversaries shall immediately add 1 point to their game. Law 36. In any case of a penalty which entitles one party to add a point or more to the score of their game, for the revoke or for any wrong practice in play, the offending party cannot count a point or more which they may have won in that deal, or round, in which the penalty was incurred, and the regular routine of the deal continues. Law 37. Every penalty incurred by the misconduct of a player must be shared and submitted to by his partner, for partners are mutually responsible for each other's faults. Law 38. If a player, who has incurred a penalty imposed by a provision of any of the preceding laws, refuses submission to such penalty, his opponents may immediately throw down their cards, and that game, at any state of the score, is declared to belong to them. End of chapter 6. Chapter 7, Part 1 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7, Hints to Tyros. Upon this hint I spake. Shakespeare. What could I more? I warned thee, I admonished thee, foretold the danger and the lurking enemy that lay in wait. Milton. Euchre and life own their losses and gains in ephemeral strife. Play alone, when you hold the good cards in the pack. Assist, with the ace or the king and a jack. Pass, holding both bowers, on refusal to take, you can make it the next and play what you make. Look out for the bridges, and cross if you choose, but with Euchre and life play to win, not to lose. Pettis. The ensuing hints, confidingly and confidently suggested to novices in our highly scientific and gleesome game, result from an experience gained in many a glorious and well-foughten field, and although not pretending in these premises to be Sir Oracle, yet haud in expertus locor. We hope they will be kindly taken as meant. Should they appear trite and simple to players of a certain degree of skill, we beg permission to remind them that the hints are offered only to novitiates, with a desire fully to explain to them some of the most approved points of play. We venture to invite attention to a few words by way of prelude. As the principle which guides us in social intercourse, if we remember our early education aright, is politeness, the observance of those pleasing amenities which tend so much to make life agreeable, so that which should guide us at the card table is good humor, that cardinal virtue. Adhere undeviatingly and persistently to the law in each and every case made and provided, and remember, there is no power in Venice can alter a decree established. Play the right game always, cote qui cote, and insist on the strict play of the game by your opponents, for no option in playing, at variance with prescribed precepts, can be tolerated. And if your partner commits an error, require the other side to avail themselves of the advantage attained by it, for the mistake of one party is the game of the other, fairly. Eschew especially every circumstance and act that has a tendency to produce confusion or misunderstanding in play. Acquire the habit, it is easily accomplished, of determining whether you pass or order up without unnecessary suspense and hesitate not to say. Promptness and a quick response, when 'tis done, then 'twere well it were done quickly, should be part and parcel of the play. It is better to decide wrongly a few times than mislead your partner by hesitation. Nothing can be more irksome than to see a player, especially if one's partner, boggling over his cards, hesitating and undecided what to do. Such indecision, besides, betrays your hand. Holding but 5 cards, a glance at them, simply, enables a quick judgment to declare whether he will pass or not. "Speak quick, it is the strength of the game," is the favorite ejaculation of a favorite friend of ours. Never exhibit peevishness and ill temper, reserve it for home consumption, when you lose, nor too great elation of joy when you win. Nor permit the calm expression of your face to be ruffled by the appearance of your hand, and bear all reverses with Christian fortitude and Jewish resignation. So, if your hand, we mean the cards you hold, gentle Tyro, should happen to be as red as the saints' days in a Romish calendar, or as black as the consecrated essence of midnight, when the opposite colors are trumps, pursue the even tenor of your play with placid demeanor, with Columbine innocence and serpentine wisdom, and publish it not with impatient demonstrations or vituperative expressions against ill luck, for cards, at times, will obstinately run as chance directs. 'Tis not in mortals to command success, you know. If you do not, it is time you did, you understand. Oh, there be players that I have seen play, who grumble and fault find as much over the card table as they would chaffering and cavilling at a market house with a huckster, as if cards were not invented for recreation and amusement. Very reverend sport, truly. Should your partner make an occasional misplay, take it kindly, and avoid, by all means, that horrid practice of fault-finding and censure. Everyone, you know, except ourselves, commits blunders, and mistakes are inevitable. Should you be eminently successful in winning from your adversaries, don't twit them too often and persistently with their defeat, but enjoy it secretly and quietly, as we enjoy love and poetry, for modesty, says the renowned Munchausen, forbids individuals to arrogate to themselves great successes or victories. It may hap, once in a while, that you will find yourself associated with a partner who is a novice in the philosophy and mysteries of our noble game, and when you do begin to perceive that he is one of those unfortunate individuals of neglected erudition whose intense ignorance of the play is disheartening, displaying the most marvelous ingenuity in preventing you from winning, and a cruelly tantalizing facility in helping your opponents to defeat you, smile if you can. We always do. Illuc Ionicus. In such a case, if no other kind of amusement can be resorted to, suggest refreshment. You will find it a great relief. And besides, someone may then offer to take your place at the card table, or your partner, for worse, may obtain some more suitable employment. Never give in and grow faint-hearted. Hard as it is sometimes to lose when near winning, but console yourself with the comfortable reflection that while the combat continues, victory is uncertain. Although, at this game, the advantage rather depends on skillful combinations and a quick calculation of chances at the various periods of play than on high cards, yet the most unskillful novice at the game may frequently hold such commanding cards during an entire seance that he must necessarily win all the tricks, even from experienced experts, for bowers will defeat aces, and aces will capture kings. Avoid too much elation at a run of luck, for the hoodwinked goddess must succumb to persistent skill. Moreover, you will soon find but little excitement in like easy skirmishes. But, when cards do range out equally and high on either side in groups of threatening and overwhelming strength, good scuffling hands — I love a hand that meets mine own — affording fine scope for combinations of chance and skill, arousing the accomplished adept's valor for the strife to victory, then comes the tug of war. We have known players, when holding such hands, to play a series of several hundred games without making a single error in play, or failing to win every trick on the cards — think of that, Master Brooks — and be emulous. Always consult the score of the game, playing accordingly, and remember that the policy of your antagonists is at variance with your own. Never let your face betray your hand. An air of coldness and impassibility of feature are indispensable qualities in play. There may be other circumstances of play which we might assume to hint at, that cannot well be demonstrated by rules, but deference to the opinions of others, older, if not better soldiers, your knowledge of the refined observances and established usages of society, and a certain natural tact, will guide and counsel you, we fancy, better than any suggestions of ours. Skill, of course, is only acquired by practice. Once more we earnestly recommend, nay, beseech you, to give no indications by gesture or expression of the strength or weakness of your cards, but preserve a stoical placidity of countenance, eschewing in every manner all species of unfairness. And we hope it may be to our fortune, oft in the stilly night, to meet you in friendly conflict on the velvet plain. In the meantime, let us return to our muttons, for if we have a fault it is digression. After the ceremony of the deal has been concluded, it is the duty of the eldest hand to order up the trump card or pass. He should always order it up at a bridge, when not sure of a trick, as before explained. He should also, of course, when sure of one trick and has passed accordingly, make the trump if the dealer turns it down, and for the same reason that he would order up at the bridge. At any other stage of the game he must hold a very strong hand in trumps to order up. The left bower, ace, and 10 of trumps, with an ace of a lay suit, or 2 commanding cards of a lay suit, as a general rule would be sufficiently strong, or the ace, king, 10, and 7 of trumps, especially if the 5th card in his hand is a high one. The eldest hand, when strong at the suit turned for trumps, and also strong at the next in suit, in utrumque paratus, should always pass, to euchre the other side if the trump is adopted. For, if it should be turned down, he can then make the trump. As a general rule, he should always pass for the euchre when as strong at the next in suit. Never order up with the 2 bowers and the ace, or other high trump, if you have 2 cards even so low as the 7 and 8 of the same color of the trump, because, if the adversaries adopt the trump, you are sure to euchre them, and if it is turned down, you have a lone hand at next in suit. With the right bower, ace, and 7 of trumps, with a secondary card at the next in suit, it is safe to pass, for you will probably euchre the hostile side if the trump is adopted, and you are almost sure of the odd trick at the next suit if the trump is turned down. Next in suit, or dutching, is deemed by many eminent professors of the game one of the most important elements of play. The principles upon which this rule is founded we will here essay to explain. The pack is composed of just 32 cards, of which number 21 are thrown round by the dealer for the play of each hand, leaving 11 cards, say 1/3 of the entire pack, in the talon. When the dealer and his partner decline to play at the suit turned for trumps, it is fair to presume that neither of them holds a bower, especially if the turn up is a court card. The chances are greatly in favor of the presumption that one of the bowers has been distributed in the deal, and nearly equal that both of them are out. The probability, then, is that one, if not both of them, are in your partner's hand, yourself having neither. And if the bowers are not out, it is raison de plus why you may win the odd trick with fewer and weaker cards than in an ordinary hand. Your partner, if a skillful player, will never order up when holding both bowers only, but will pass for the euchre, if the trump is adopted, or for next in suit if turned down, for so he plays his part. We have known instances when the eldest hand's partner has played and made a lone hand at next in suit, when the eldest hand has made the trump, according to rule, without having a single trump in hand. At all events, the chances are much in favor of making the trump next in suit, and favorable chances should always be embraced. Have a care of the main chance. When you follow this rule, always lead a trump, unless you have the tenace of right bower and ace, and you should lead the bower then if you hold commanding lay cards. It is sometimes asserted that if this rule is strictly adhered to, the dealer may often win a euchre by a ruse, in turning down when equally strong at each suit of the color. But in the event of his being strong at both suits, the exception to the rule, crossing the suit, may be in your hand. It is a bad rule, we are told, that works only one way, and exceptio probat regulam, you know. The eldest hand opens the game, and as success frequently depends upon the lead, c'est le premier pas qui coûte, he must bear that fact in mind, and deploy his small force into action skillfully, with decision. It is a rule with many experienced players to lead through the assisting hand. That is, when the dealer's partner assists, the eldest hand is always expected to lead a trump, if he has one, in every case, except when a bower is turned up, or you have the left bower guarded. The exceptions to this rule, we think, are so multitudinous, that the practice is almost as much honored in the breach as the observance. The rationale of the rule is founded on the supposition that the partner who assists may hold but two trumps, and by leading a trump, his trumps and his partner's are brought together, and if you or your partner have commanding cards in lay suits, you may make a euchre. And, moreover, if your partner holds two trumps, by leading through the strong hand up to the weak, the dealer's partner assisting is supposed to be in that position, you give your partner an opportunity to finesse. These are the only advantages we now revive in memory. If the eldest hand holds one or two trumps, especially if small, with commanding cards in other suits, the trump should then most assuredly be led. Should he hold three trumps of various value and two lay cards of suit, the 7 and queen for instance, and is playing to euchre the dealer, he should always lead the lay 7, for when he wins the rentrée with one of his small trumps, the queen will then either win the trick or force a trump from the opponents. If the eldest hand's partner should win the first or the second trick, he should never return such a lead, because the eldest hand, if he comprehends his vocation, will never commence the round with an isolated plebeian card, unless for some exceptional cause. With two trumps, two lay cards of suit, and one single lay card, commence with one of the two lay cards, for one of your trumps may bring you back to your suit, and your second lay card will then probably force the other side to trump. Never open with a single lay card when holding such a hand, because you may have an opportunity of throwing it away on a trick of your partner's, or, when second player, on a lead of a numerical card of the suit of which you have none, which will enable you to ruff its suit, if led by either of your adversaries, and win you a trick. When playing to euchre, if you have two or more small trumps with commanding lay cards, lead a small trump, as it may enable you to make the high cards when trumps are expended. When your partner orders up, or makes the trump, always lead him one, the best you have, without regard to tenace or left bower guarded. When, being eldest hand, you are scoring 3 points to your game, and your adversaries count 1, or nothing, and you hold very weak and sickly looking cards, although this is not a bridge, yet it is often well to order up and take a euchre, especially if a bower is turned up, rather than risk a lone hand to the other side. And if you are euchred, you are euchred. Que sera, sera, as we used to say at Florence. Santissima Madonna! Those days are past. If you hold a lay ace, when opposed to a lone hand, always lead it, for if you hold a king or queen doubled, you have an additional chance to prevent the march of the lone player. That condition of the game in the flood tide of luck, termed the bridge, is fully explained at the close of Chapter 3, to which we respectfully beg leave to refer. When it carries you safely over, praise it, and thus much for your duty as eldest hand, and we, like England, expect every man to do his duty. End of Chapter 7, Part 1. Chapter 7, Part 2, of The Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre, by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 7, Part 2. Your performance as second player, when the game's afoot and the eldest hand has given you a taste of his quality, is much more circumscribed and simple, consisting mainly in following the suit led, or in roughing it, and this easy duty and irresponsible continues through each of the 5 rounds in which you have to play second fiddle. When confident of winning 2 tricks, always assist and rely on your partner to win 1 trick. The second player, the dealer's partner as they sit at the table, must remember, however, that when the trump card has been turned down by the dealer, and the eldest hand has passed the making, it is his duty, though not quite so imperatively on him as it is on the eldest hand to make the next in suit, to cross the suit, that is, to make the trump either of the black suits, the one in which he is the stronger, of course, when a red suit has been turned down, and vice versa, and for nearly the same reasons just given for the eldest hand for making next in suit. As second player, rarely rough a numerical lay card the first time round, as the chances are even that your partner may win the trick. Throw away any single lay card of less value than an ace, if you have 1 or 2 small trumps, on such a lead, which will enable you to rough its suit when led. Also, underplay a numerical trump, risking the chance of your partner winning it. We have an acquired antipathy to a single lay card, and love to dispose of its bachelor-like wretchedness by embracing the first opportunity. So often as the lead changes, the relative positions of the players, as the leader, second, third, and fourth player, also vary, of course. Second player following suit to lay cards, as a general rule, should always head, that is, win the trick, if he can. The same, with few exceptions, when playing trumps. With 1 trump only, if the right bower himself single, and your partner adopts or makes the trump, rough with it the first chance. When you can neither follow suit nor trump, throw away the weakest card you have, naturally. In the situation of third player, your officious duties become more onerous. When playing to win a euchre, if you hold a small and a medium card at trumps, and have the opportunity to rough, stick in the medium trump, if third player, which may force the dealer to play his best trump. Never send a boy you know on a man's errand. And this, by the by, reminds us of a pretty problem in play. Suppose yourself sitting on the right hand of the dealer who has turned the knave of spades and adopted the trump. 2 rounds have been played, the first trick having been won by your opponents, and the second by your partner. Your partner leads in a lay suit, and is followed by the second player, and you hold the left bower, ace, and queen of trumps. You play either the left bower or ace, and the dealer holds the right bower, king, and 10 of trumps. If the dealer takes the trick with the right bower, which he would naturally be inclined to do, he is euchred, because you then have the 10 ace. But on the contrary, if he should play the 10 of trumps and let you win the trick, he gains the odd trick, as by this underplay he secures the 10 ace to himself. If you had played the queen, which would have been a horrid play, you would of course have lost the odd trick. This simple problem is deemed worthy of a special commendation as illustrative of the peculiar advantage of the 10 ace. You should be very strong in trumps to order up, because your partner, passing, shows that he is weak, or prefers to make the next in suit. As a general rule, let the responsibility of ordering up rest with your partner when he is eldest hand. When your partner has adopted or made the trump, be careful not to win the lead from him unless you are strong enough to play for a march or to win the odd trick. Always divest your hand of losing cards when possible to your partner's winning ones. If your partner in the third or fourth round leads a lay king, you having none of its suit, which is not captured by your right hand adversary, and you have a lay king of different suit with trumps, throw it away on your partner's lead, for his king having passed safely through one hand is much more likely to win than yours would be, having to pass through both hands. Trust it through one hand rather than through two is the rule. Play in like manner in like cases, you understand. Opportunities to finesse occur but rarely, and when they are offered should be exercised with considerable caution. It is much better for the third player to win the trick than risk its loss by any delicate stratagem of play. The vocation of the dealer is replete with interest. He should commence by distributing the cards with exactness, not allowing any card to be exposed except the one turned for the trump, or his antagonists may declare the deal null, and he will have to perform it afresh. He should always discard a single card, though above medium value, and retain 2 of suit, if one of them is not higher than a 9. When he determines to play alone with 3 trumps, he should always discard even so high a card as a king of a lay suit when the only card of the suit, and retain the 7, or any other card, of a suit of which he holds the ace, for the chances are much better that the ace will exhaust the suit and let the 7 win, than that the king would win the first time round. If his partner, assisting, has played 1 trump, the dealer winning a trick should never lead him a trump, unless he is sure of winning the march or the odd trick with his own hand. For the probability is that his partner has assisted with 2 trumps only, and by leading a trump to him he may draw the last he holds, and in that way entirely destroy his game. This is a fatal mistake, but often made by inexperienced players, and is conspicuously improper, as you see. But if your partner assists, and your side have captured the first 2 or 3 rounds, leaving you with commanding trumps and sure lay cards, win the lead from him then, and secure the march, for he might be left to lead a losing card not of your sure suit. Always when assisted, Mr. Dealer, and you hold the card next higher or lower to the trump card, play it instead of the trump card for your partner's benefit. Thus, if you turn up a king, and also have the ace in hand, and your partner assists, when trump is led or you can ruff a suit, you should play the ace, which shows your partner that you have the king left. Having a sequence of 3 trumps of which the turn-up card is the smallest, and your partner assists, play the highest, which informs him that you have 2 more trumps of equal value. As in case the queen is turned up, and his partner assists, if the dealer holds the king and ace, making a sequence of 3 trumps, when the trump is led, or he can ruff, he should play the ace, which makes his partner understand that he holds the king also. The same in all similar cases. So also, if a sequence of 3 or 4 cards in play shows all the cards, above the turn-up card, and your hand continues the sequence, play the highest card for your partner's benefit. Par example, the 9 of hearts is turned for trump, and the 10, queen, and ace of hearts are played to a trick. If you hold the king of trumps, play it, because your 9 is as good as your king, and by playing the king, your partner knows that you have certainly one trump in hand, and moreover that it requires one of the bowers to win it. But if your opponents have ordered up the trump and you hold a similar hand, it is obvious, on the principle of contrariwise otherwise, that you should play quite the diverse to balk them, as you clearly perceive. Retain the trump card when your side have adopted it as long as possible, to benefit your partner, and, on the contrary, dispose of it the first opportunity to put your adversaries in doubt when it has been ordered up. A few more illustrative hints, to each and every player in a general way, we hope may be taken, as we offer them, in the very spirit of kindness. Always play to benefit your partner, in every possible way you can with fairness and good order, and to balk your antagonists by masking your hand, for in Euchre, as in love and in war, all maneuvers are admissible. 3 trumps, if medium ones only, are sufficient to take up the trump, or to assist your partner, or, ordinarily, to make the trump suit. If you hold knaves, and commanding cards of 2 or more suits, it often proves successful to pass both the adoption and the making to euchre your adversaries if they adopt or make it, especially if the other side dealt, for if they pass also, you gain the deal. Always lead a trump to your partner, if eldest hand, or if you have won the rentrée, when he adopts or makes the trump, except when he assists and has played one trump, especially if you should hold either of the bowers only. When last player, and the trick in a lay suit, if the first or second round is your partner's, and you hold a single lay card and 1 or more trumps, throw away that single card, if so high as a king even, on your partner's trick, for if he holds a card in that suit he will of course lead it, which may enable you to win the trick with a trump. When your side, having adopted or made the trump, have lost one trick, you must then play cautiously to prevent being euchred, for the risk you might venture when playing to make a march would be quite improper when you have lost one trick. Having lost the first 2 tricks and won the third, if you have one trump left, lead it, either to make or to save a euchre, for if your adversaries have a trump larger than yours, they must win the odd trick, and if it is smaller, you may exhaust them and win the 5th trick with your lay card. The only exception to this rule is when you have assisted, or your partner has taken it up, and your partner still retains the trump card, and, if your trump is higher than your partner's, and you have a winning hand for the 5th round, you should lead the trump then. Holding a sequence of trumps, and playing to euchre the adversaries, always play the highest to balk them. For instance, if you hold ace, king, and queen of trumps, and a bower is led, play the ace. When holding the left bower and one other trump, the left bower guarded as it is termed, be cautious how you separate them, for if the right bower should be led, by playing your smaller trump to it, you are sure to win with the left bower. When you hold the left bower alone, whether you are playing to your partner's adoption or make of the trump, or to euchre your opponents, ruff with it as soon as you have the chance, at any stage or condition of the play, otherwise it may fall to the right bower when the trump is led. Make the right bower in the same manner, if your only trump, when your partner assists or makes the trump, for when he wins the rentrée he would certainly lead his highest trump, and your bower, winning it, might sadly injure his game. In adopting or making the trump, you may always rely on your partner to win one of the 5 tricks. It is a rule in play that a lay queen never wins a trick. This is not strictly correct, but near enough to the truth to be adopted as a general rule. Keep your mind on the cards, as we fortune tellers say, and remember how the suits fall in play, so as not to be trumping with a 7 or 8 a commanding lay card of your partner's, a sottise, by the way, not unfrequently committed. Be cautious how you adopt or make the trump when the hostile side are scoring 3 points. For, if you are euchred, you put them out, and, in another sense of the expression, you may put out your partner too, which would be grievous. Opponent to a lone player, and holding the 7 and 9 of one suit, with single cards in each of the other suits, if queens even, never separate the 2 of suit, although there is a single chance only that one of them may win. You will be surprised and delighted too, we assure you you will, to see how often the 9 in such cases prevents the march of the lone player, and ruffles his equanimity. We always rely more confidently on a knave and 7 of a lay suit in such case than on a lay king single. We believe we have enunciated this doctrine before, but excuse us, for truth cannot be too oft asserted. These leading principles in the practice of the game should always be retained in mind, though combinations of cards in the various distributions into hands, like the myrioramic changes of the kaleidoscope, may diversify the manner of the play almost al infini. When such peculiar idiosyncrasies require your attention, they should be treated, according to Günther. It is quite unnecessary to offer any observations on that branch of the doctrine of chances which might apply to our game, or to point out that the dealer's chance of turning up a knave is 7 to 1 against him, or why, when you adopt or make the trump, the chances are in favor of your partner's winning one trick, for it is obvious that games, contingent upon chance and combination, cannot be reduced to the exactness of the propositions of Euclid and to be made to conform to a rigid and infallible geometry. Besides, the certainties of chances we do not affect to comprehend, but only have a care o' the main chance. Yet, to gratify a curiosity that might crave such enlightenment, and simply alluding to the ramifications of chances which enter into the play, we will mention that there are 4,591 chances to 1 against holding the Jamboree, that it is about 27 to 5 against holding the right bower, or any one particular certain card, and that 201,376 separate and different hands, like the stripes on a zebra's back, no 2 alike, may be held in this pleasant game. In this journey through life, should Dame Fortune's dark frown upon you be cast, let it ne'er weigh you down. Should friends fail to assist, and pass heedlessly by, and you should euchred be, why still never say die. And so may you ever, while playing life's game, have the queen and the king and the ace of the same, encircled with diamonds, with hearts, and with bowers, enjoying the perfume of love's happy hours. End of Chapter 7, Part 2. Chapter 8 of the Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre by Charles MEEHAN. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 8. Rules for Playing Draw Poker. The deal and dealing of the cards. The deal is of no special value, and anybody may begin. The dealer, beginning with the person at his left, throws around 5 cards to each player, giving 1 card at a time. The dealer shuffles and makes up the pack himself, or it may be done by the player at his left, and the player at his right must cut. To begin the pool, the player next to the dealer on his left must put up money, which is called an ante, and then, in succession, each player, passing around to the left, must, after looking at his hand, determine if he goes in or not, and each person deciding to play for the pool must put in twice the amount of the ante. Those who decline to play throw up their cards face downward on the table, and per consequence in front of the next dealer. When all who wish to play have gone in, the person putting up the ante can either give up all interest in the pool, thus forfeiting the ante which has been put up, or else can play like the others who have gone in by making good, that is, putting up in addition to the ante as much more as will make him equal in stake to the rest. If a number of players have gone in, it is best generally for the ante man to make good and go in, even with a poor hand, because half his stake is already up, and he can therefore stay in for half as much as the others have had to put up, which is a percentage in favor of his taking the risk. This, of course, does not apply if anyone has raised, that is, more than doubled the ante before it comes around to the starting point. Any one at the time of going in must put up as much as double the ante, and may put up as much more as he pleases by way of raising the ante, in which case every other player must put up as much as will make his stake equal to such increase, or else abandon what he has already put in. Each player, as he makes good and equals the others who are in before him, can thus increase the ante if he chooses, compelling the others still to come up to that increase or to abandon their share in the pool. All going in or raising of the pool, as well as all betting afterward, must be in regular order, going around by the left. No one going in, making good, increasing the ante, or betting, except in turn. When all are in equally who intend to play, each player in turn will have the privilege of drawing, that is, of throwing away any number of his 5 cards and drawing as many others, to try thus to better his hand. The cards thus thrown up must be placed face downwards on the table, and, for convenience, in front of or near the next dealer. The dealer, passing around to the left, will ask each player in turn how many cards he will have, and deal him the number asked for from the top of the pack without their being seen. The dealer, if he has gone in to play for the pool, will, in like manner, help himself last. The players must throw away their discarded cards before taking up or looking at those they draw. Every player for himself. In the game, every player is for himself and against all others, and to that end will not let any of his cards be seen, nor betray the value of his hand by drawing or playing out of his turn, or by change of countenance, or any other sign. It is a great object to mystify your adversaries up to the call, when hands have to be shown. To this end, it is permitted to chaff or talk nonsense with a view of misleading your adversaries as to the value of your hand, but this must be without unreasonably delaying the game. When the drawing is all complete, the betting goes around in order, like the drawing, to the left. The ante man is the first to bet unless he has declined to play, and in that case the first to bet is the player nearest to the dealer on his left. But the player entitled to bet first may withhold his bet until the others have bet round to him, which is called holding the age, and this being an advantage, should as a general rule be practiced. Each bettor, in turn, must put into the pool a sum equal at least to the bet first made, but each may in turn increase the bet or raise it as it comes to him. In each case, the bets, proceeding around in order, must be made by each player in his turn equal to the highest amount put in by anyone, or else failing to do that, the party who fails must go out of the play, forfeiting his interest in the pool. When a player puts in only as much as has been put in by each player who has preceded him, that is called seeing the bet. When a player puts in that much and raises it, that is called seeing the bet and going better. When the bet goes around to the last bettor or player who remains in, if he does not wish to see and go better, he simply sees and calls, and then all playing must show their hands, and the highest hand wins the pool. When anyone declines to see the bet, or the increase of the bet which has been made, he lays down his hand, that is, throws it up with the cards face downward on the table. If all the other players throw down their hands, the one who remains in to the last wins, and takes the pool without showing his hand. To bluff is to take the risk of betting high enough on a poor hand or a worthless one to make all the other players lay down their hands without seeing or calling you. When a hand is complete, so that the holder of it can play without drawing to better it, that is called a pat hand. A bold player will sometimes decline to draw any cards, and pretend to have a pat hand, and play it as such, when he has none. A skillful player will watch and observe what each player draws, the expression of the face, the circumstances and manner of betting, and judge, or try to judge, of the value of each hand opposed to him accordingly. No one is bound to answer the question how many cards he drew, except the dealer, and the dealer is not bound to tell after the betting has begun. Drawing of cards. If the player determines to draw to a pair, he draws 3 cards. If he draws to 2 pair, he draws 1 card. If he holds 3 to begin with, he draws 2 cards in order to have the best chance of making a full, inasmuch as, in playing, pairs are apt to run together. But to deceive his adversaries and make them think he has nothing better than 2 pairs, a sharp player will often draw but 1 card to his 3s. It is advisable sometimes to keep an ace or other high card, as an outsider, with a small pair, and draw but 2 cards, thus taking the chances of matching the high cards, and so getting a good 2 pairs, or something better possibly, while at the same time others may be deceived into believing that the player is drawing to 3s. When drawing to cards of the same suit to try to make a flush, or to cards of successive denominations to try to make a sequence, as many more cards are to be taken as will be needed to fill out the flush or the sequence. But it is seldom advisable to venture in to draw for either a flush or a sequence when more than 1 card is required to complete the hand. When a player holds 4s in his original hand, it is as good as it can be, and yet it is best to throw away the outside card and draw 1, because others may then think he is only drawing to 2 pairs, or for a flush or a sequence, and will not suspect the great value of the hand. When one is in, as he ought seldom to be, without even so much as a pair, his choice must be either to discard 4 cards or 3 cards, and draw to the highest or 2 highest in his hand, or throw away the whole hand and draw 5, or look content and serious, stand pat and bet high. The player, determining to try this last alternative on a worthless hand, had generally better begin by raising when he goes in, or else nobody will be likely to believe in his pretended strong hand. Relative value of hands in their order, beginning with the best. 1. A sequence flush, which is a sequence of 5 cards and all of the same suit. 2. 4s, which is 4 of the 5 cards of the same denomination. 3. A full, which is a hand consisting of 3 cards of the same denomination and 2 of likewise equal denomination. 4. A flush, which is all 5 cards of the same suit. 5. A sequence, which is all 5 cards not of the same suit, but all in sequence. In computing the value of a sequence, an ace counts either as the highest or lowest card, that is, below a deuce or above a king. Footnote: Many experts rate 3s in relative value above a sequence, but the better opinion is that a sequence should rank first, as being in itself one of the complete hands. End footnote. 6. 3s, which is 3 cards of the same denomination, but the other 2 of different denominations from each other. 7. 2 pairs. 8. 1 pair. 9. When a hand has neither of the above, the count is by the cards of highest value or denomination. When parties opposed each holds a pair, the highest pair wins, and the same when each party holds threes or fours. When each party holds two pairs, the highest pair of the two determines the relative value of the hands. When each party holds a sequence, the hand commencing with the highest card in sequence wins. So also when two or more parties hold flushes against each other. That full counts highest, of which the three cards of the same denomination are highest. The two cards of the same denomination help only to constitute the full, but do not add to the value of the hand. When hands are equal so far that each party holds a pair or two pairs of exactly the same value, then the next highest card or cards in each hand must be compared with the next highest card or cards in the other hand to determine which wins. In case of the highest hands, which very seldom occurs, being exactly equal, the pool is divided. The main elements of success in the game are 1. Good luck. 2. Good cards. 3. Plenty of cheek. And 4. Good temper. End of Chapter 8. End of The Laws and Practice of the Game of Euchre, by Charles MEEHAN.